Okay, so one question I'd like to have you explain, I maybe have some slides to help people with this because I've had people bring up the fact that, well, your position is a lot different than mine because they'll say you're a true post-tribber, where a lot of people would call me a mid-tribber. But and I know, you're not familiar with everything I teach on the subject, but something that I am familiar with is how, but confuses some people on my side, is on your timeline you have a 7-year tribulation, but then you have God's wrath being 1,040 days after the tribulation. And so the thing
Correct.
is, you have us here for the same events that I believe we're here for, the seals, but then you have us out of here for the trumpets and vials. I also agree with that. I guess if I had a timeline, which I'm not creative enough to make one, but if I had a timeline, I would probably put it all within the 7 years, where you have it going another 1,040 years or 1,040 days beyond the 7 years. And it seems to me that's based on the 2,300 days of Daniel. You start that
Correct.
at the abomination of desolation. So could maybe you explain that to the audience a little bit, your timeline and how that works there?
Well, sure. If you take my slides down there, brother, it's the timeline behind me here. Um, there's a 7-year period called the 7-year tribulation. Then in the middle, the Antichrist breaks the treaty. So this starts off when Antichrist makes a treaty that allows them to rebuild the temple. It doesn't say they start rebuilding the temple, but they make a treaty to start rebuilding. So, which could have already been done. I don't know. I think it was in secret. But then there starts a 3.5-year period called the Great Falling Away. The temple is going to be rebuilt. When they get ready to dedicate that temple, Antichrist is going to break the treaty and set up an image in the temple and tell everybody to worship it. There's all kinds of theories about that. One is that it's artificial intelligence. They have gotten to the point now with this AI robotic stuff that you probably could have a robot rule the world, especially if everybody had to have a microchip in their hand or forehead so they get controlled also. I don't know how far the biotechnology's gone on that. It's amazing. Back in the 70s, they invented the barcode. You put the barcode on products, and you can scan that little barcode, and every one of them, since they started making it, the first two black lines is the computer code for 6. In the middle, there's 2 skinny lines that go longer than the rest, the computer code for 6. At the end, it's a 6. Every one of them, since they started, was 666. And they're still that way. So is that the mark of the beast? I think it's probably going to be some kind of microchip they can put in your hand or in your forehead, and you simply won't be able to buy or sell without it. That's the only punishment. You don't have a chip? Okay, you can't buy or sell. Well, that's pretty bad punishment. How many of you are buy or sell something? I think all of us do, okay? So you won't be able to buy or sell. Then it says the treaty is broken and the temple is desolated. But when you read Daniel chapter 8, he said, how long is the temple going to be desolate? And they said 2,300 days. Well, half of 7 years is 3.5 years, which is 1,260 days in the prophecies here. And it uses the number 1,260 several times, talking about these two half 7-year periods. Well, 1,260 go way beyond the end of the tribulation. So that's why I get the 1,040 days. I think this is the time when God's wrath falls. We get raptured up. We're at the marriage supper of the Lamb having a wonderful time. We get judged to determine our rewards, not to determine if you go to heaven. That's already been determined because you're there. It's only to determine the rewards. Do you get wood, hay, stubble, or gold, silver, precious stones? And the works are going to be tried by fire. And some people that we think have been fabulous Christians, they did all kinds of cool stuff for the Lord. They got a pile of rewards. It's going to all be hay, wood, or stubble because they did it for the wrong motive. Okay, God sees the heart. We can't see that. But anyway, the rewards are judged to determine at the judgment seat of Christ. This apparently determines what kind of place ranking you get in heaven, or maybe when we come back to rule on earth, if you get to be the governor of Lennox or the governor of Alabama or the president of the U.S., some kind of ranking of hierarchy, how much God trusts you. I don't know all that. But this 1,040 days, about 3 years, I think is the best way to make it all fit like a Sudoku puzzle. How do these all fit? I think the temple is desolate for 2,300 days, which runs over the 1,260 by 1,040. While we're up at the marriage supper of the Lamb, Satan is ruling the world down here, and God's wrath is being poured out. At the end of the 1,040 days, we come back, we return on white horses with Christ. See, the second coming of Christ, he came once 2,000 years ago to Bethlehem. The second coming has two parts to it. The first time, he only comes down as far as the clouds, blows the trumpet, we're caught up. He doesn't touch down on earth. Then, at the end of the marriage supper of the Lamb, he comes down and we come with him on white horses. This time he touches down, and the Battle of Armageddon takes place. And so that's the best way I could call it. And boy, I wrestled with this for a couple of years, brother. After I even got done writing my book for a doctoral dissertation and doing my charts, I said, Lord, I don't want to publish this unless this is right, show me. And I read through it and studied through it a bunch of times. Yes, I believe that's the correct sequence. This is what the church has always taught for 2,000 years, that we are here for the tribulation. It wasn't until that crazy 15-year-old girl had that dream that it changed and invented this pre-trib idea. So the phrase pre-trib might scare some people. What is that? Trib is just a short word for tribulation, okay? Does Jesus come before the tribulation and catch us out? That's what this girl taught, and that's what I believed for years, and that's what many people believe today. Some people believe we get raptured out in the middle of the tribulation. The day of the Lord, the Bible tells the wrath of God falls in the day of the Lord. Well, the day of the Lord is 1,000 years long. So the wrath of God has to fall in the day of the Lord. And I cover all the verses on my chart right here that talk about that topic. So I put it all together. I studied it till my brain hurts, and I still think that's correct. We're here for the tribulation. We're raptured out before the wrath of God falls. We are raptured out right here. When the sun and the moon go dark, it's called the day of Christ. The day of Christ is mentioned right here in all these verses. That's very different than the day of the Lord. The day of the Lord is a 1,000-year period, which I have greatly shortened here. I took out 230 feet to make it fit on my chart. But yeah, I would encourage people, read my book, watch my charts, watch my video series I did on that, where I taught through the whole thing, 21 hours teaching on what's going to happen. And get this on our website, drdino.com, for $100. And when you're done, you can watch it, copy it if you want, send it back, and get your money back. Brother, I used to loan my videos out. I learned immediately that Christians don't steal, but they borrow and never return. I'm not going to loan you nothing. Okay? You buy it. When you're done, I'll buy it back off you. I don't know of a more fair way to do it.
No, there's a lot of truth to that statement for sure.